how do you talk in 10 minutes about 2 years of planning, 71 days on the road, 59 days in a bicycle seat, 60-plus hotels where you got to load and unload the van every day. We went through 14 states. We covered over 3,400 miles. We actively burned over 230,000 calories. And I'm really going to be missing the fact that I'm going to have to go back to dieting because that was great. We have not done the mileage on the amount of vertical feet we climbed. All I can tell you is, in rough orders of magnitude, I think we went up from sea level to K2 about 6 times. So as we went through this trip over the last 71 days, we kind of ran into a lot of characters. And generally, it would start with, what are you guys doing? Oh, you're biking across the country. Now, this elicited 3 kinds of responses. The first is, you mean a motorcycle, right? No, we're on bicycles. At that point, it would prompt the, are you crazy, stupid, or both? And then the last one is, so why the hell would anybody want to ride a bike across the country? And that was our bingo bonus winner chicken dinner moment, because that enabled us to talk about why we were doing this. So we were able to bring the conversation to light, which was really the primary reason Tom, Ellen, Libby, Dyer, and I, and all of our drop-in buddies who are in the audience undertook this enterprise. We had a chance to talk about the route, which was Lewis and Clark in reverse, and most people don't know, after they've seen Ken Burns' series or read Undaunted Courage, that Meriwether Lewis gets 32 guys out and back all the way to the Pacific Ocean from 1804 to 1806, comes back 3 years later and dies by suicide. So we had the theme of the ride. And then the other part of the question, the corollary to that is, so are you guys raising money for a foundation? And the answer is yes. Let us tell you about the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. At which point, particularly for Tom and Ellen, when they would say, we lost our daughter 5 years ago, all of a sudden, the people we ran into had permission to have a conversation that they would not have in their communities. So one night, we're somewhere in Montana, in a place called Jordan, Montana. There are no mistakes and there are no coincidences on this trip. So we're in Jordan, Montana, population 500, the 43rd least dense county in the United States. We're at a little motel that literally is 6 rooms, parking lot, and the woman that owns it is 3rd generation, and she's out front. And Ellen's engaged this woman in conversation and goes, I've had some depression issues over time. And then her husband comes back to check on us a little bit later, and for 35 minutes he talked to us about his wife's struggle with depression. Now, in a town that small, you're not going to go down to the Hell Creek Kitchen, which was the only bar and restaurant in town, and have that conversation with your neighbors and be judged by them for this. So the entire guys on bicycles riding across the country thing was truly remarkable, because it's kind of like going to Europe or going someplace on spring break and you say, hey, I'll never see them again. You have permission to do things that you ordinarily wouldn't get to do in your local home community. And it was just remarkable to hear the outpouring of these stories. The other one that is poignant in my mind is we're in Lewiston, Montana, a town of about 5,000 people. We're having dinner one night in this restaurant, and this kind of Cajun hippie-looking dude is our server for the night, and we're settling the tab. And he goes, so what are you guys doing in town? So we said, we're doing this cross-country bike ride. We're doing this for suicide and depression. And he goes, he just stops dead. And he goes, I just got back from Baton Rouge, where I buried my best friend who died by suicide last week. So this guy happened to be a bike rider, who'd have thunk it, in the state of Montana. And we're getting ready to go out the next morning in the worst weather we have had. We just ridden 85 miles to try to get in front of the front that was blowing through. So in the snow, sleet, and ice, Brad comes out with us and rides us up another 2,000 feet to get us over a hill and then comes back. But here's a guy that just was remarkably touched by what we were doing. And then the other thing I love about Lewiston, Montana is we had a buddy in Great Falls who got us on the news, and Montana's a small news state, so there's not much going on, so we were kind of a big deal. They filmed Ellen's engagement ring. They showed us pumping up tires. It was really spectacular. So, Ellen always checks to kind of figure out where donations are coming in, and all of a sudden she goes, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe this one. Here's $35 from a guy in Lewiston, Montana, who saw us stupidly riding through snow and ice and sleet down the main street of Lewiston, and sent us a donation, and the tagline said, 'Anybody stupid enough to be riding a bike in this weather deserves our financial support.'" So the next question we heard was, how in the hell do you do a 3,700, 3,500 mile bike ride? And the answer is really simple. Well, you plan for it. And it took about 2 years to get this knocked out, but the best decision we ever made was hiring Dyer Bentz, who at age 27 has ridden 20,000 miles on a bicycle. And Dyer rode from, just to give you a perspective, he rode from Prudhoe Bay, which is northern Alaska, to Tierra del Fuego, which is 14,000 miles. So we had a kid who actually knew what the hell he was doing, and Tom and I felt kind of bad when Dyer would sit around and tell us Pedal South stories and about sleeping in the fire station or being out in the middle of the desert and having to scrounge for water, and we're having a cold beer and sleeping in a hotel every night. So that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is you go on and you troll for great ideas. And early in the process, I found the best advice that I've ever gotten about long-distance riding, which was from an old guy who's ridden across the country probably 15, 20 times. And he said, very simply, don't think about how far you've been. Don't think about how far you got to go. Think about what you're eating at your next snack stop. So that led us to what Tom and I call TAT, which is 20 at a time. So if you look at Tom and I, you kind of go, you're not really kind of the body type of the adventure cycling people. You all are really, again, back to the Clydesdale references, which the little teeny tiny bikers that can ride circles around us called us. And it really gets down to being able to ride small distances or short distances and then being supported. So for those of y'all that don't know what SAG is, it is not a condition of the over 40 slumping people. It stands for support and gear. So Ellen Harris and Libby Manning were our SAG team. And since we were doing Lewis and Clark in reverse, thank you, Randy Walton, wherever you are, they became the SAG Jaweas. So the importance of the Sacagaweas is to keep the Clydesdales fully fueled, fully hydrated, and to see us and give us emotional support. And if you're Ellen and Tom, you got to kiss every time you see them. So that was one of the sweetest things. And then Libby's looking at me going like, what, did we chop liver? So the other thing, and this is all an acronyms. So the other one, Libby, Ellen and Tom were having dinner with a cross-country serious cyclist who was on one of these deals where they did it in 2 weeks. And this guy goes, I'm just an EFI guy. And Tom looks at him and goes, EFI. And the guy goes, every effing inch, we're going to do it, man. Tom calls up and goes, hey, Isaac, we're not doing EFI. And I'm going like, dude, we're going to do EFD, which stands for every effing day. And for those of y'all that have ridden consistently, you know that getting out of bed and after you've done 90 miles the day before and everything is sore and you've done this 5 days in a row, you kind of don't want to ever see a bicycle seat ever again. But the thing about Tom Harris is that you look left, I look at myself, and I know that this guy has no quit in him, so we're going to get up and go do it. So our morning ritual was, hey, Tommy, what are we going to do today? We're going to ride bikes. And that's how we got through pretty much every day. So while there was pain and suffering, there were many practical jokes played on us by drop-in riders, and I'm going to skip some of those. But the greatest stooge of all time is what Dyer did to us. So we are somewhere in Nebraska going to Weston, Missouri. It's cold, it's wet, and then we're about 5 miles out of Weston. The thunder starts, the rain pours, and it's hailing. And the Sacagaweas, to their credit, were looking for us, but they were outside the 5-mile rain protocol, and we're just drowning. So they roll down the window, and they think we're doing this, but actually we're doing something else. So when we get to Weston, Missouri, charming little town, we're staying in a little bed and breakfast. We're dripping all over the front foyer of this place. This woman's extremely nice and handing us towels so that we don't ruin the floor. There's a bar, there's a Irish pub across the street. So Tom and I are all of a sudden very happy. We've got a shower, we've got a warm place to stay, we've got an Irish pub. Dyer goes, oh my God, don't forget, we've got to go downtown to Kansas City tonight to have dinner with my cousins. Tom Harris is a man of very few words. So we load up and we're following Dyer into town, and Tom turns around and looks at me and goes, could you explain to me why we're driving 50 minutes away from a perfectly good Irish pub to go downtown to downtown Kansas City and have dinner with Dyer's cousins? Not another word was spoken until we got to the restaurant. So we do what we always do. Sorry, Libby, I'm going to go ahead and say this. We went straight to the bar. And we're in the we're trying to figure out how we're going to get a beverage because this place is packed. And Dyer runs in. He couldn't find a parking place. His hair's on fire. And he goes, guys, come on to the back. So we start following him to the back room. And when you've ridden in cold, snow, hail, and are just miserable, and all you want is a beverage and dinner, the thought of having to deal with people and have polite conversations, since we've been in small towns of maybe 1,000 to 1,500 on back lane roads, we're driving in traffic and everything, and you got to go talk to people, not on your list. So we walk in this room, and all of a sudden we see the entire Hillwood Alliance team that has flown up to meet us. To say we were speechless would kind of be an understatement. And Tom, as stoic as he is, almost got there. And then me, who would have ever, for those of y'all that know me, for me to be weepy, I was kind of the emotional raw nerve on this trip. But I was kind of weepy when I saw everybody. So Mike Berry and the Hillwood team and all of you guys and Ross Jr. for sending the plane, to have that level of support at the halfway point was just, just overwhelming. The last part of this is gratitude. And I would like to start, weepy, with our drop-in riders. So while the lights are low, the drop-in riders were the people that joined us along the way. So we had the first group that joined us from basically Portland to Missoula, Montana. Then we had another group that started from Kansas City and got us to St. Louis. So in the audience today, I would like to recognize the Hip Kids, and these were all the young Hillwood bikers. Toby, Kelsey, Todd, John, and Dustin, can you guys stand up wherever you are and give these guys a round of applause? So these guys were not part of the original drop-ins that we thought we were going to have, but these guys are fired up. They're the best bikers I have ever been around in my entire life. And if you ever are feeling really bad and slow, you need John Shaw, because he's got a hook on the back, and he will haul you to the finish line. Shaw, you're the man, baby. Also on that trip, Elizabeth Anderson, if you're here, I know I've seen you. Dancing Deborah Hale. Ned Harris, where are you? Ned's down front. Stand up, Ned. And then Muhammad, a.k.a. Jim Carney from Chicago. So the five of us are generally by ourselves on two-lane roads, staying in really crappy hotels or motels. And the question of the day would be, is this going to be a place that has a corridor, or are we just backing the van right up to the room? So the last part of this and the last drop-ins, I just can't thank enough, because they're all Fort Worth guys. John Pergandy, Tony Cream, and Chris Culver. You guys here? Stand up, please. So these folks deserve more credit, because in their 5 or 6 days with us, they had the crappiest weather we had on the entire trip. Got to tell you, it was terrible. I can't, for those of y'all that have been following us on social media or texting or calling or checking in, you do not have any idea how much it meant for you all to follow us on this deal. And the support and the love that we felt as a team just got us through every day. There were days when we didn't want to ride, we didn't want to get up, we wanted to go home, we wanted to call our mothers, we wanted air support, we wanted extraction, we wanted more bag bomb, anything, we needed to drink earlier. You know, it was an amazing trip, but there are days where psychologically when you're doing this as long as we were doing it, it's really hard, and I can't tell you guys how much we appreciate it. And then for everybody to turn out today for the luncheon, as you all have done incredibly over the last 4 years, nothing but gratitude.